So we're jumping right into it. I'm really excited to see how the interaction of these Tapus happen, how players protect the Kartana, how the Arcanines interact with each other. There's so much going on in this matchup, and I don't know, I'm so excited to see how the players adapt, especially as they don't know each other's sets. So how are they going to play this match?
Yeah, we'll see this lead matchup coming off here. We're going to see the Tapu Lele and the Arcanine getting off that Intimidate here right off the bat. We're going to see Persian and Tapu Koko, so we will be able to see that Persian get some action here. But, of course, that Tapu Lele Psychic Terrain is going to activate after the Tapu Koko, of course, being slower. That doesn't rule out the fact that it could be a Choice Scarf variant, but we do know that that Tapu Lele is slower than the Koko based on the way the terrains have fallen out here. And what also is going to happen is that's going to nullify the Persian's ability to go for a fake out, of course, as there are no priority moves under Psychic Terrain. So it's going to be an interesting matchup here. It seems as though Enosh seems to have a little bit of an advantage here, taking away that potential fake out from the Persian, but we might see a parting shot or some sort of variation there, Wolf.
Absolutely. I totally agree with your analysis. And what's cool about the fact that Markus has both Tapus is if he wants to, he could bring back his Koko into his Feeny and go for a fake out. I'm not saying it's like a phenomenal player or anything, but he does have that option. I know that the Persian typically either run Parting Shot or their Assault Vest. So depending on Markus's item, he can play this differently because Parting Shot gives him a free switch. He could even reset Electric Terrain this turn, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of like Enosh's position here. If Arcanine is an offensive variant, if it has Choice Band, Flare Blitz is going to hit really hard, and all Markus really has to switch into it is his own Arcanine and maybe a Feeny. But we actually see Persian moving before Koko, which is very unexpected in my opinion. As Persian lowers Tapu Lele's special attack, physical attack not as important. Let's see what Markus brings in here. It could be any one of 4 Pokemon.
Yeah, great point there. Very surprised to see that the Persian go first there, potentially running a Focus Sash, or it might be running a Dark EMZ or something like that. This Koko, of course, not being as fast, so potentially a modest Koko. We're going to see the Volt Switch come off here into the Arcanine slot, so some great opportunities for Markus to be able to switch out his team there. We saw the Parting Shot. We saw the Volt Switch there, so it could be some sort of like modest variant. But here comes the Persian again. Here comes a Flare Blitz from this Arcanine, or Arcanine, as you like to call it, and that is going to be targeting into the Persian, which is likely rocking the Fur Coat, of course, doubling its defense stat, allowing it to take that hit a lot better. We see some recoil damage there, and it is a Calm Mind Tapu Lele, something I was not expecting to see here, obviously nullifying that Parting Shot reduction there, of course, reducing both the attack and special attack stat of the Tapu Lele.
Well, that was such an amazing, very clever play from Markus, but Enosh didn't really this is still such an interesting position. Markus is able to reset the terrain and reset fake out, switching out both of his Mons using their attacks between Volt Switch and Parting Shot. But Enosh not going for an attack. I think Markus was probably trying to bring in his Persian to take a Psychic, but Persian actually takes a lot from Flare Blitz and is now in range from another Flare Blitz. So I don't know a lot about Persian calcs. I'm not sure if you do, but that might be Choice Band Arcanine. I'm not really sure. And I don't know, the fact that Fake Out is now in play is good, but the fact that Enosh was able to raise his special attack after it was dropped, I still think this is like a really interesting position. I'm not so sure that one player has a clear advantage. What is interesting to note is that Parting Shot will not go off if the target protects. So yeah, here we go.
We're going to see another Parting Shot into that Arcanine slot. Going to drop its attack and special attack stat, reducing the power of those Flare Blitzes. It's going to be interesting to see whether he does target off a Wild Charge or if he is indeed locked into that Flare Blitz, as you alluded to, potentially being Choice Banded, especially if that Persian's running any sort of bulk investment, potentially some HP and some speed. I'm assuming it's going to be max speed. But we're going to see the switch back into Tapu Koko.
Ooh.
I'm curious to see if he gets double targeted here into this Koko, or whether we're going to see some hits off into that Lele. But we'll see the Surge change the terrain back to Electric Terrain. Here comes a Z move. And we are going to see that big Z move. Inferno Overdrive it is. What slot is he going to be targeting?
Well, I think Enosh, I just saw a thumbs up from Enosh, so I have a feeling this might be into Tapu Koko. Do you think it can live this, Dan? It's -1, but this could be very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, Tapu Koko, obviously not the bulkiest Pokemon in the format, so I don't know if it's going to quite live being -1. This is still a very, very big hit here, but it looks like Koko hangs on there. The Dazzling Gleam will probably pick up the kill on the Koko, and it does indeed do that. A little bit of chip damage there on the Finny. Curious to see. There is the Muddy Water,
and
that's going to do a lot. Yeah, that is going to do a lot to the Arcanine, potentially picking up a kill here, and it does knock out the Arcanine.
Wow.
Will we see an accuracy drop on the Tapu Lele? Looks like we are not going to see any drops here, so we might see that Persian hit the field again just to get that Parting Shot momentum.
Absolutely. So that was a really, really interesting turn because we saw that a lot of Enosh's sets are kind of unconventional. You know, we've seen a lot of either Choice Band or Life Orb or a lot of 50% healing berries on Arcanine. But the fact that Enosh chose to use Fire EMZ is a really unique choice in addition to the Calm Mind. So this is the third time I think that we've seen Persian at the field, and twice before it's parting shotted out. But I don't know. I think I kind of like this position for Enosh. I don't see how Markus is going to get through that Tapu Lele very easily unless he's saving his Kartana in back. So this is a really interesting position. Garchomp will be Choice Scarf. Lele boosted special defense, obviously not taking a lot from Muddy Water. So I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
I think we might actually see that fake out here if he's carrying it on that Persian. This would be the opportunity to use it. Obviously, having the terrain in his advantage. The Lele obviously can't reset the terrain at this point in time, so we might actually see that fake out, which could give Markus the chance he needs to kind of pull back and get himself some more momentum here. But right now, that Garchomp is looking pretty scary. That Lele, of course, a very, very big offensive threat, especially with that +1 special defense that it still has. Fake out goes into the Lele slot to nullify that as a threat. We're going to see a Bulldoze here, which does hit everything on the field and drop speed stats for everything. So we talk a lot about speed control in VGC and how important that is. And we're seeing a lot of players start to utilize that Bulldoze, something we didn't really see early on in the metagame, but now we've seen it a couple times in this format today.
Oh, wow. So that's a very, very, very interesting turn. Persian eats a berry that heals 50% of its health back up. It's back to about 75% now. Markus reveals he's not choice specs, and based on that damage, Dan, that might be an Assault Vest Garchomp. I wouldn't bet on anything, but that could be Assault Vest. So that's a really interesting turn from Enosh, choosing to Bulldoze all of the opponent's Pokemon, probably trying to put Persian into range for a Dragon Claw or an Earthquake, but unfortunately, because of the 50% berry healing its health back up, Persian is now back, still healthy, able to parting shot, probably able to take another attack here. I don't know. This is very interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned that Garchomp potentially being Assault Vest. It's also possible that the Finny, of course, is a more defensive variant. We've only really seen the Muddy Water and Moonblast, and that Garchomp could also just be running some bulk investment. It seems to be a potential team supporter, not a role you normally see Garchomp running. Garchomp typically carrying a Ground EMZ or a Choice Scarf, but in this situation, we see a much different set from Enosh running that Bulldoze there, but we're going to see a Protect here. Potential double Bulldoze could be coming in here. There's the Earthquake, so he is carrying Earthquake and Bulldoze, and that does start to confirm my suspicions that it could be Assault Vest, as you mentioned there. Garchomp typically struggles with move slot syndrome, but we're going to see that big hit come off, but not enough to pick up any kills. Parting shot aiming into the Lele, so great Protect there. Moonblast looks like it's going to aim into the Garchomp slot and pick up that kill, getting rid of that huge threat, but the speed control was done, and that Garchomp is living on a prayer. Oh my goodness, that Garchomp just saved its own soul, and you guys can save 50% or more by switching to Geico for your car insurance. Great live there for Garchomp, and it's going to be interesting to see how Markus can bounce back after that really tough play. Obviously, the Moonblast not picking up the kill on the Garchomp is huge, and then, of course, that Persian going into Protect, as you mentioned earlier, not able to really do anything there. So a lot of momentum that Markus thought he was going to have seems to be lost here.
Yeah, and this is what's cool about Pokemon to me, because in theory, that was a very, very bad turn for Markus, but depending on what he has in back, depending on what both players have in back, that might have actually been favorable. If Enosh had Kartana in the back, he would have been in a situation where he could very freely bring in his Kartana, and as you can see, that Markus has Kartana in back, nothing could really freely take anything from an opposing Kartana. So I don't know, it's still very interesting. You can see Markus brings in his Kartana here. Let's see, do we get a flinch? No, we don't. Parting shot coming out into Lele now back to -1 special attack. And let's see what this Lele does. I would expect maybe a Psychic, but at -1, it depends on how Markus's Kartana is trained and on how much special attack investment Enosh has. But I think both of Markus's Pokemon should be able to live anything from Enosh's end at this point.
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting situation. A Dazzling Gleam's going to come off. Will this pick up the kill on the Finny? It looks like it's going to come a little bit short. This Kartana is very, very scary. That's going to activate that Super Berry, of course, boosting that Tapu Finny back up to about 65, 70%. Kartana is a very, very big threat. We know this Garchomp here is most likely not carrying Protect, as we've seen Bulldoze, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. The Lele is immediately threatened out by the Kartana, which, of course, outspeeds everything on the field. Hard to tell from that Dazzling Gleam damage whether it is Assault Vest or not, but this Kartana poses a huge threat to Enosh's side of the field. It's going to be interesting to see how Markus can utilize Kartana's power, of course, rocking 180 plus base power on the attack stat, and just a great defensive typing if you can keep it away from those fire type moves.
Yeah, that was an amazing switch for Markus. Now Kartana most likely will outspeed this Garchomp and can pick up the KO. It can also pick up the KO on Tapu Lele, and if you look at Enosh's team, the only thing he really wants to switch into Kartana is an Arcanine. But we've already seen that Enosh's Arcanine is KO'd. So Enosh making a switch here, bringing his Lele back, and then, okay, sorry. Razor comes out, hits both targets, has, I believe, 95% accuracy, misses one of the targets, but unfortunately for Enosh, it's going to miss his Kartana and not his Garchomp. So Markus will pick up a Beast Boost here. Now his Kartana is +1, which I believe means that it probably can pick up the KO on the opposing Kartana with Sacred Sword. And things are getting really close.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at a potential speed tie here momentarily. Of course, both these Kartanas most likely rocking a Jolly Nature to maximize that 109 base speed stat, and that'll put them at the top of the speed tiers here in this format right now with the 4 Pokemon sitting on the field. Going to be very interesting to see whether this Kartana who wins the speed tie here, and whether that Sacred Sword will be able to pick up the kill. After that +1 beast boost on that Kartana, it does seem as though it should be able to pick up a kill from Marcus's side, but a speed tie here could be detrimental for Marcus if he loses that tie. Of course, Kartana being a huge threat to both sides of the field. This turn here could actually be the results of the match. This is there's a chance for both players really to make a huge turn here. Timely Protect could make a huge difference, but we'll see what that Kartana's carrying. The Sash variants do typically carry the Protect, but I'm assuming in that Marcus's Kartana probably doesn't have that Protect. Might be more on the Assault Vest variant side, considering the fact that we did see that Razor Leaf.
And we actually see Yoshi switch out his Kartana into Persian. So he gives up that beast boost. He says, I don't need your boosts. I'm going to bring in my Persian. And Persian, I don't think can be able to take this attack. Let's see. Persian loses all of his health. I assume, though, that Marcus has gone for a Moonblast into his opponent's Kartana, hoping that his opponent's Tapu Lele cannot pick up the KO with Psychic, despite the Psychic terrain. Let's see what happens. Psychic comes out into Feeny.
Yeah, Feeny, of course, with that 130 base special defense, being able to live, but missing the Muddy Water on their Kartana, which is absolutely huge. Of course, that Kartana picking up that kill, getting that beast boost. We're going to see that missing the Kartana is huge there, but this is going to come down again to that speed tie.
Yeah, there's no avoiding it.
Can Marcus's Kartana outspeed the opposing Kartana? And even if it does Enosh carry Protect on his own Kartana? So this is pretty interesting here that Feeny just holding on to that Psychic, but we do know that Lele is going to outspeed Feeny. We're going to see what goes down here. This is not over by any means, but it's so definitely
close.
It's going to. I think it's coming down to that speed tie and whether or not Enosh is carrying Protect on his Kartana, because that could really redirect the way this this turn goes. But I'm a little surprised to see Marcus go into that Persian, probably just not wanting to risk that. All right, guys, we are back. We had a little bit of a technical issue there, which caused our stream to drop, but we do have the play-by-play as to what is going down in that last match before we kick off the round 2 matchup here between Marcus and Enosh. So, Wolf, why don't you take it away and let us know exactly what went down there after the stream went out.
Thanks so much, Dan. And I'm really sorry about the disconnect, guys. My mom unplugged my router. But here's what happened. Basically, as you recall, Marcus had 2 Pokemon left, Kartana and Tapu Fini, and Enosh also had 2 Pokemon left, a Kartana and a Tapu Lele. Marcus' Kartana reveals that it's Choice Scarf and goes for a Sacred Sword, outspeeding Enosh's Kartana, picking up the KO with the Sacred Sword. Now it's 2 versus 1. Before the turn is over, Enosh's Tapu Lele, which is pink and also Psychic type, picks up the KO on Marcus' Tapu Fini, which is already low on HP, making it a 1 versus 1, where Marcus' Kartana, although it was beast boosted, it was unfortunately locked into Sacred Sword, meaning it couldn't pick up the KO on Enosh's Tapu Lele, which outdamaged it with Psychic. So that was the situation. Enosh does take game 1. We are about to jump into game 2 with the players, and I'm really excited about this. That was a really interesting game. We saw some really, really cool sets from both players, including stuff we don't see very often. So I'm personally really excited. We saw Bulldoze Garchomp. We saw Combine Dazzling Gleam Tapu Lele. We saw 50% berries on Tapu Fini on Marcus' side, Persian on Marcus' side. We saw Life Orb Slow Coco that undersped a Persian. We saw, oh my gosh, we saw so much stuff. We saw Scarf Razor Leaf Kartana, and we saw there was something else that was really cool. Firium Z Arcanine. So lots of really cool stuff here. So much at play. We haven't even seen 4 of the Pokemon that have the potential to come to this matchup. I don't know. I'm really excited to jump back into this, and I just can't wait to see if Marcus is able to bring this back or if Enosh is able to edge him out and take the set 2-0.
Yeah, great analysis there. Curious to see whether Enosh is going to be able to rock that Trick Room setup here in game 2, maybe switch up his game plan a little bit, or kind of stick to what worked. We saw that Kartana really put in some work there at the end. Obviously, the Tapu Lele with that Calm Mind proved to be very, very effective. We've got Marcus here. He did try to do a couple funky things there with the Volt Switch from the Coco, as you mentioned, which was slower than the Persian, potentially some sort of specs variant, or potentially rocking just a modest nature with not enough speed. He could be running a bulky variant of Coco, which I've actually seen some players try to ensure that they can live specific hits from like Poison Jab, Garchomp, and things like that. So it's going to be curious to see how Marcus and Enosh kind of change up their game plan here heading into the second matchup. Looks like the players are getting ready right now. Wolf, what are you expecting to see out of this game too?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I really did like Tapu Fini from Marcus because it was kind of one of his main outs to and I believe, I'm so sorry, I think it's pronounced Enosh, or Enosh, sorry, Enosh, not Enosh. Yeah, Enosh. We're so sorry, Enosh. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. I think Tapu Fini really has a place here in this matchup, potentially from both players. Though I think Enosh is probably less likely to bring it because Marcus did bring both his Kartana and his Tapu Koko. I do think both players are kind of forced. Maybe not forced. I don't know. I think Marcus really should have brought his Arcanine because it's just like we saw that Marcus had so much trouble stopping Enosh's Arcanine. But it does look like we're getting into it. I expect both Arcanines. I think both Kartanas have a place here, considering there's 4 Tapus in the matchup total. But the other 2 mons from each player could be anything really. And let's just jump right into it. So we have Arcanine and Porygon 2 from Enosh as Persian Tapu Fini, an interesting adjustment from Marcus. So what do you think about this, Dan? How do you think this matches up?
Well, this is very interesting in the first place. We're going to see, obviously, Marcus get the terrain control here, of course, setting up the terrain, but that Lele in the back could potentially stop a fake out and really mess up Marcus's plans here. You talked a lot about Arcanine being brought to this matchup. We saw Arcanine rise to the top of the usage here in VGC 2017, being a great versatile Pokemon. We've seen a number of different sets on it, a number of different items, and that versatility and that intimidate ability is ultimately what allows Arcanine to shine in this format. Again, being a great response to Kartana, perhaps the best Kartana response to the format. Yes. Really declining the usage on that Pokemon, but this is an interesting counter matchup here. We see the Persian and the Finny come off. Curious to see whether Marcus is going to try to go for that fake out, potentially running the risk of that Lele coming in, or if we're going to see that parting shot. We haven't really seen anything else come off from that Persian slot, and then we might see a Trick Room here, but that Persian could stop it, so this will be very interesting to see how it shakes down.
Here's why I think this is so interesting. Yeah, so Enosh, if you look at his team, nothing on his team really benefits that much from Trick Room. So I'm curious as to whether that Porygon 2 has Trick Room or if it's just there as a counter. Because really, I don't even think Trick Room would have helped him that much in the last game. So this is a defensive turn from Enosh here. He brings in his Arcanine and protects. As Persian actually reveals Taunt. So we've now seen Taunt and Parting Shot, which means that it can't have Fake Out, Snarl, and Foul Play. It can't have all 3 of them.
Very interesting, actually. We saw that we're going to miss the Muddy Water, of course, protecting the Arcanine there, but the Muddy Water would have hit the Lele and done a good amount of damage. Very interested to see that Taunt, though, come off from the Persian. So potentially guarding for that Lele switching in the Arcanine slot instead of going for the fake out onto the P2, going for the Taunt there. Obviously, P2 switching out into Lele. So very interesting play here. This Lele has an opportunity to potentially start setting up Calm Minds, as Finny doesn't really threaten it too much aside from the Muddy Waters. We might see that Arcanine switch out here, though, in favor of something else. We might see that P2 come back in. We know, as you mentioned, incredibly bulky threat. Might just be a way for Enosh to be able to reverse Trick Room, perhaps. As you mentioned, it doesn't really benefit his team too much. But it's going to be interesting to see how this play shakes down.
Yeah, actually, that was my first thought as well, that Lele might have a free Calm Mind here, but I forgot that Marcus just taunted it. So
good point.
He can't Calm Mind. So Parting Shot comes out here. If Marcus has brought his Kartana in the back, I really actually agree with that play a lot, because it seems to me that if Marcus can get rid of the Arcanine, which is made easier because of the fact that Enosh doesn't have any way of healing his Arcanine, Marcus's Kartana just is free to sweep through the Tapu Lele, the Tapu Fini, maybe the Porygon 2. And here's actually the Fire MZ. So we don't actually know if this is physical or special, but if it's physical, pretty much regardless of which side of the spectrum it's on, it shouldn't be doing too much damage here. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
Inferno Overdrive.
Yeah, both Pokemon on Marcus's side of the field, of course, resisting this Inferno Overdrive, so we're not going to see it do much. Here, it's going to be firing off into the Arcanine. I'm expecting to do maybe 30-40%, and that's just about what it does.
Yeah.
That's a damage calc, my friend.
Yes, yeah.
So we're going to see a Dazzling Leaf come off here, as you did mention. The Lele, of course, being locked into Taunt, of course, not being able to use any sort of boosting moves. The Muddy Water does connect on both targets here. Does a tremendous amount to that Arcanine. Wow. And gets a very clutch accuracy drop on that Lele, which could really turn the tides of this match here. Very interesting turn there. I think Marcus got the better of that turn, though. Not only being able to predict that potential Inferno Overdrive, burning the Z move on Enosh, and really putting himself in a decent spot here, getting that accuracy drop in the Lele.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I really like the way that Marcus played that turn. By damaging the Arcanine, I'm so sorry, he's like preventing it from really being as useful as a switch-in from now going forward. He would lower the Tapu Lele's special attack, which he knew he could do because it wasn't able to protect. I actually would have preferred to see a Psychic, I think, from Enosh's Tapu Lele, but he was probably worried that Persian would just stay in and go for a Snarl, maybe. Or maybe that the other slot was switch, or I don't know, maybe he didn't think that he had Arcanine in the back. But yeah, this is the adjustment I expected to see, having Arcanine on both players' teams. And Persian actually comes back in here. And I really like that play from Marcus because it can take a potential Psychic. It gives him big out pressure again. And it's really just not really in any danger. He can Parting Shot out if he doesn't like his position. So Porygon 2 is switching in here. It's going to get an attack boost. Maybe not useful. We have seen, oh my goodness, Toxic Arcanine. That's huge.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen too much of that. We talked a little bit about Arcanine's versatility earlier, being able to run just a multitude of different sets, and it can skillfully dodge some Muddy Waters there. This Muddy Water is going to come off and just do a smidgen to that Porygon 2. About 15%, I would say. And if you guys want to save 15% yourselves, you can switch to Geico for your car insurance. So this Persian comes in, does get Toxic. Very interesting tech there from Arcanine, especially considering that the terrain, of course, being Psychic terrain. You see a lot of Tapu Finis, so surprising to see that tech there potentially to wear down opposing Snorlaxes and Porygon 2s, so on and so forth. But still a decent position for Markus here. Has the opportunity to go for a taunt into that P2, stop any shenanigans that thing could do. Arcanine is really, really worn down here and does not want to take a Muddy Water. Of course, that Arcanine dodging that Muddy Water on the last turn really, really helped out for Enosh. But we'll see what Markus does here. He's got a lot of opportunities. We know he cannot go for Fake Out, though.
Yeah, and if you're Markus, you have to be upset about that Muddy Water miss. Arcanine being able to stay in here is now able to go for another Toxic if it wants onto the Tapu Fini. And let's see what it does. So, oh no, that's very bad. Yeah, because that Toxic damage is going to start adding up very quickly. Tapu Fini, normally not a Pokemon that gets badly poisoned, but thanks to Enosh using the Psychic terrain, oh my goodness. Another Muddy Water miss. Yeah, I don't know. This position looks so good for Markus a second ago, and now I'm just really not sure. After that Muddy Water was Toxic on both Pokemon, the Psychic terrain is still on the field. And Enosh does go for a Trick Room here. So maybe he's just realizing that Markus's Pokemon, that he probably has Kartana in the back, and he wants to abuse that. I don't really know why exactly Enosh is trying to set up Trick Room, but I definitely think there's probably a pretty good reason for it. And if I'm Markus, I have to feel pretty good about taunting, but getting two of your Pokemon badly poisoned against like a Porygon 2, which is so bulky and can recover, I don't know. It's looking a little bit scary. For Markus. Yeah,
but the good thing that Markus does have in his favor, even though he does have that badly poisoned status, of course, happening, that Persian does have the ability to switch out with that parting shot, potentially to nullify any potential stat boost in the Lele this turn. The Fini, of course, kind of sitting there, could be a double switch here, but that Fini, that poison is really going to hinder that's ability to really last in this match. So we know Fini, of course, being one of the bulkiest Pokemon in this format, known for its longevity. We are going to see that parting shot, which will reset that Toxic turns into the Lele slot. No taunt there. Obviously, the P2 is going to be forced to attack on this turn, so it's going to be interesting to see whether it's going to be going for a try attack here into that Persian slot, which is now going to be replaced by an Arcanine. So very interesting there. Intimidate not going to be effective, of course, in this scenario, as both Pokemon are likely to be special attackers. But this Fini might be trying to fire off a Muddy Water here. Here comes a Psychic aimed into the Arcanine slot. That's going to do a lot of damage.
Oh, when he gets a critical hit, that was not going to KO without a critical hit. Now Markus is down to three Pokemon left, and two of them are badly poisoned. It's very interesting to me because I think if Markus had Kartana, that would have been a pretty good opportunity to bring it in. So either he's just trying to play it conservatively because it's the Scarf variant, so it's not able to be as effective as in switching in. But I don't know, if you're Enosh, you have to go pretty good about that crit, because that Arcanine probably had a 50% variant. It would probably have taken a Psychic and healed all the damage right back up. But now you're in a position where your opponent lost their source of Intimidate, which means Garchomp and Kartana. And yeah, actually Enosh's Kartana is going to be super threatening here. So I don't know, Dan. It's looking kind of bad for Markus at this point.
Yeah, there's always a chance that you could pull it back, but he did get that special attack drop on the Lele, but just such a bold prediction there from Enosh, really going for that Psychic into a Dark type, obviously, which otherwise would have done nothing. But we're going to see the fourth member is going to be Tapu Koko, of course, changing that terrain back to electric terrain. But this Fini's turns it is definitely on a timer. With that Toxic, did about 20% on the last turn. It's going to be racking up the damage every turn. I believe it goes from 6 to 12 to 18 and continues to multiply out. Does a lot of damage to that Fini. He could switch it out on this turn to potentially save that terrain for Fini later and maybe reset those turns. But again, that Persian is suffering that same fate from that Arcanine's Toxic. A very interesting tech move. We haven't seen much in this season of VGC 2017, but Enosh really trying to take advantage of Arcanine's versatility. But this Lele is in a commanding position. We're going to see a big Z move coming off here, and that is looking like this Koko is going to be fire off something very big. Are we about to see that
an Electrium Z?
Yeah, we're going to see that Gigavolt Havoc Nature Power, allowing him to take advantage of the multiple terrains. Nature Power is something you see, I think, often on Whimsicott, if I'm not mistaken, to take advantage of the terrains. But this is going to do a tremendous amount to the P2. I don't know if it's going to quite pick up the kill, though.
No, but it'll probably do a lot. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, no. I really hope. Oh, actually, no, wait. I'm so sorry, guys. Because Porygon 2 is taunted, Marcus could even go for a Muddy Water here and not be in that much damage, or that much danger. Because if he goes for Moonblast, let's see, who's it into,
He did target the
Double
P2
the
slot.
Porygon
Can this
2.
pick it up? And it is going to pick up the kill
no.
on the Porygon 2 there. So we see a very clutch Gigavolt Havoc with that Nature Power, of course, allowing the Tapu Koko to get Moonblast essentially through Nature Power and getting a very strong electric type move as well. So kind of interesting tech there. I'm curious to see whether we're going to see a lot of other players bring that out as Marcus brings it, but we're going to see that Kartana come in, and that is just a tremendous threat to his team right now. We know it's going to outspeed that Finny, which is on a timer. That Coco probably can't do much to Kartana, and that Lele just got that Calm Mind up. So this is looking pretty tough for Marcus there.
Yeah, I think this is still doable, but I think it actually would have been better if Marcus had left his opponent's Porygon 2 alive for one more turn. This Kartana is really threatening, and I don't know if it's Scarf. It's possible that Marcus just won a speed tie last game or had a faster Scarf Kartana, because we did see that Enosh's Kartana is most likely not holding the Assault Vest item. So I don't know. I assume that Thunderbolt will do a lot of damage to both Kartana and Tapu Lele, but I don't know if how much it will do. Kartana actually reveals to Tech, so it's not Scarf. Let's see what Marcus did. Hidden Power.
A Hidden Power Fire.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, such a clutch protect there from the
Calm Mind.
Kartana. Oh, wow. So he's really bulking up this Lele to ensure that it can take hits from that Tapu Koko. We'll see what this Finny's going to do, but it's probably not going to be able to do too much. Muddy Water is going to hit off into that Lele. I can tell you Marcus is in dire need of an accuracy drop if he wants to pull this back. He's got a solid chance at a 30% chance to get that accuracy drop, that toxic damage is putting that Finny on one turn left unless he switches out. But we're going to see that Berry Pop, of course, and give him maybe 2 more turns. But we do see the detect from the Kartana there, probably indicating it's running Focus Sash. But that Tapu Koko running HP Fire, very cool. Marcus prepping, of course, for Kartana, is giving himself another opportunity. We're assuming HP Fire could very likely be HP Ice, but the HP
More
Fire
likely
seems
HP
to be
Fire,
likely,
yeah. And actually, so what is important to note here is I think that, unless I've been counting wrong, I think that Tapu Lele is only at neutral special attack because it was Moonblasted once and Parting Shotted once, and it's Calm Minded twice. So even though it has used Calm Mind twice, I still think that Tapu Koko should be able to take any attack from it. So the real question here is, what item is Enosh's Kartana? Let's see. Kartana goes for double protect
and fails. Of course, when he used protect, he's going to go for the Nature Power here, wishing he probably went for the HP Fire, but things have changed very quickly here. Marcus getting a lot of momentum here. Moonblast not going to do any, it's actually going to hit the Kartana here for a good amount of damage. Even though Kartana resists, its paper thin special defense is going to really hinder its ability to take that hit there. Wow, interesting play. We're going to assume here that Marcus, of course, we saw in game 1, obviously that Persian outsped the Koko, so we could pretty much assume that this Koko obviously carrying Electrium Z and also carrying the carrying the Modest Nature, potentially just enough to outspeed Kartana and base 110s. He's probably sitting right around the base 111 speed tier there with his Modest Koko.
Yes, absolutely. And unfortunately, it looks like this Kartana is not going to be enough to save Enosh, but you can save 15% or more on car insurance by switching to Geico. Check him out. But yeah, that was actually a really amazing play by Marcus. I think he correctly identified that Enosh, first of all, he identified Enosh doesn't want to protect his Lele because last time we went Hidden Power Fire, it's a safe Hidden Power Fire into Kartana. So he says, okay, Enosh might go for the double detect. I think my Electric Terrain boosted Thunderbolt can pick up the KO on Enosh's Tapu Lele, and that's really good because if Tapu Lele goes down and I don't lose Kartana, I don't lose my Tapu Koko, Persian and Tapu Koko both outspeed my opponent's Kartana, so I have a safe win condition here because I have Hidden Power Fire. Even if he's Focus Sash, I can still win this game. So I don't know. I really, really, really like that awareness from Marcus. When your opponent protects in front of you and you have a super effective move, it's very tempting to say, they have such a small chance of getting a double protect. Why don't I just go for it? Why don't I just take the KO? But Marcus correctly identified that Enosh identified that his win condition was to save his Kartana and instead attacked Tapu Lele. So I think that was extremely impressive play from both players. Really, and we see another cool tech from Enosh, Fire Z and Toxic from Enosh's Arcanine. So much is going on in this matchup. There's so many factors. Z Nature Power with 3 opposing Tapus or 3 other Tapus that can change what that move turns into. There's so much going on, and I don't know. I really, really love the way that this matchup is turning out.
Yeah, you got to give all the props in the world to Marcus battling back there, taking that second game and bringing the series to 1-1. We're headed to a game 3 here momentarily, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how these players try to adjust to the previous matchups. We saw Enosh bringing that Porygon 2 with a Trick Room option, Very interesting to see that, especially considering the mold of his team doesn't seem to fit that. Will Markus try to bring the Snorlax this time, which could really, really put some pressure on, especially if Enosh does not bring that Kartana, of course, the primary threat to take down that Snorlax with that Sacred Sword. So we saw it try to go for the double protect. A lot of information taken there too. We saw a lot about that Tapu Koko, very unique set. You talked a lot about that Arcanine, of course, running Toxic and Fire MZ. But looking at that Tapu Koko, something I really haven't seen before. We saw HP Fire. Typically, you see HP Ice. We saw that Nature Power, which, of course, is going to change based on the terrain. We saw that Z move really, really putting in some work there. Very interested headed into Game 3 here.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. And like after game 1, when I saw that Enosh's Arcanine was holding Fire MZ, I was like, okay, that's actually pretty good for Markus because, he's got multiple Pokemon that can take that pretty well. He's got Intimidate to weaken it. And I don't know, like it's like Enosh doesn't have the 50% healing. So that's like, I don't know, I feel like that puts him at a disadvantage in this matchup. But when you reveal Toxic, I feel like that changes so many things. And it's if Enosh had been able to drag out that game just a little bit longer and just make like maybe Toxic a little earlier on Marcus's Pokemon, or maybe just have that game last a few more turns, I feel like it could have been a different situation. So it's a really interesting Arcanine. And again, I do feel like whenever there's a Kartana in play, you have to have checks to it. And the fact that both players brought their Arcanines that matchup, I think kind of speaks to that. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like okay, here's how kind of how I'm looking at this. It's like both of these teams are so cool and there's so much going on and there's so many factors. Like on Marcus' side, we have Volt Switch and Parting Shot, which like allow you to see what the opponent, whether or not they're switching, and then switch out. You also have Taunt to stop potential Calm Minds and Trick Rooms, and you have Fast Mode with Kartana, with Scarf Kartana, Tapu Koko, and Persian, but you also have a Belly Drum Slow Snorlax, I don't know if it's Belly Drum. And on Enosha's side, you have double Tapus, you've got Toxic with your own Tapu Fini, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but he's using Lele to kind of override it. You have Calm Mind, you can just attack with Lele because it's so powerful. We maybe Focus Sash Kartana, maybe Z move. There's so much going on.
Yeah, we're going to see.
I'm just super excited. Yeah, go ahead.
No, this is great here. Jumping into a Game 3, we'll see that Persian again. So 3 times in a row, Markus bringing Persian, really trusting in that cat, of course, the Garfield S cat. We're going to see that Porygon 2. Did Markus prepare for that P2 again and bring that Snorlax, which would outspeed everything under Trick Room in this matchup and really could turn the tide, typically carrying Return or Facade and high horsepower as well, which could prove to be very effective against Arcanine. That Facade or Return would do a tremendous amount of damage to anything on Enosh's side of the field. But we've got a Koko, we've got a Persian, we're seeing the Porygon 2 and the Finny here. We'll see what shakes down here in the first turn, but we might see that momentum play again for Markus, where he does go for the Parting Shot, does go for a Volt Switch. He might allow that Trick Room to be set if he is hiding that Snorlax in the back.
I could not agree more, Dan. And I think this is interesting because although Markus doesn't have Thunderbolt, so he's not really threatening the Tapu Fini as much as you might think, he does have the Z Gigavolt Havoc. So let's see what he does here. Taunt comes out into Porygon 2, protect from Tapu Fini. So at the worst, this turn should be pretty good for Markus. Let's see. Volt Switch comes out into Fini. Porygon 2 goes for a Thunderbolt, actually, probably into Persian. Let's see. No, actually, Tapu Koko. What do you think about that one, Dan?
Yeah. Perhaps thinking he was going to Volt Switch into the P2 slot, maybe go into a Finny of his own.
Oh, yeah.
So that could have been a really interesting play there from P2, trying to get a little bit of chip damage off on that Finny. Bring it a little bit lower so he can try to avoid that berry. But, of course, Finny, very, very bulky. And it's irrelevant anyway because Koko took that hit with no problem without this electric terrain. That Thunderbolt is not getting boosted at all. Persian, of course, going for the taunt, really nullifying the effectiveness of P2. P2 is a great, great Pokemon, has tremendous bulk, but it's not very offensive unless you're running that download set and you get that special attack boost. So very passive turn there from Enosh, aside from that Thunderbolt. We'll see if that Finny stays in. It is, of course, at very, very big risk here of this Koko fire.
Was it Garchomp?
There's the Lele.
Lele. Do you think Markus Gigavolt Havoc? Oh no, it's Normalium C. Dan, he can't Gigavolt Havoc. He can only Gigavolt.
Yeah, he would end up getting the psychic
Shattered
one. Yeah.
Psyche. Oh my gosh, so many Z moves are in play, and I can't keep track of all of them because there's too many Tapus. So Parting Shot comes out. I think that's a good play from Markus. He's lowering the special attack of that Lele. He's not worried about that Porygon 2. Let's see what comes in here. Fini, do you think he's Z Normalium? Twinkie tackled?
That would, of course, turn it into a Twinkle Tackle, which does get the stab boost, the same type attack bonus. But we'll see that Koko fire off a Volt Switch. Okay. So all that theory modding for nothing.
Oh my
God,
my
30% off to the Lele, but perhaps saving that Z move in the back there for later. The Finny, of course, coming out, resetting the terrain, providing some very, very crucial protection from any status that we might see. T-Ball comes off here.
Again,
it does target into Persian slot, which is going to do another 30%.
That's more than I thought, honestly. I don't know. Maybe I underestimated how strong Porygon 2 was, but I still like this position for Marcus. That Tapu Lele is -1 special attack, and it doesn't have Moonblast, or it most likely doesn't have Moonblast. I believe we've seen all the other moves. So it can't. I don't even think it can KO Persian at this range because it's -1 special attack. Tapu Fini not threatening that much, but Porygon 2 is not really that threatening either. So there's a lot of factors here. But even if Enosh Calm Minds, he's just putting himself back at neutral, and Marcus could always parting shot again, and he has the option of Fake Out, which isn't something we've seen a lot this matchup, but. Well, do we know if he has shown Fake Out, Dan?
Yeah, I believe he did do Fake Out at one point in the match.
Okay.
We've seen Taunt, Fake Out, Parting Shot. Haven't seen anything else, so it's very possible he is carrying Snarl. It's possible he's carrying a number of different moves, actually. Yeah, Foul Play would make a lot of sense, too, especially deal with, like, SD Chomps. But we'll see Protect here coming off from the Lele. This P2 has just been sitting here. There's the Fake Out into Lele slot, so good prediction there to Protect. Calm Mind from the Finny. And that is a very, very big play from Marcus there. I was wondering to see whether we would see a Calm Mind Finny, of course, with that base 130 special defense, great physical defense, good bulk. T-Ball's going to come off and hit that Finny slot, I'm assuming here. No, he's going to go back into the Persian. Wow, interesting turn. P2's taunt wears off, but that Persian is still on the field, able to taunt the P2 again, preventing it from going for a recover or a Trick Room. And this Finny is looking incredibly scary, especially if Enosh does not have that Kartana in the back.
Absolutely. And Dan, I don't know, I think this is such a clever way about concealing information. Marcus played this whole set. He brought Fini, every game or just the last two? No, every single game, I believe, never showed Calm Mind. Enosh might have assumed Taunt or maybe, I don't know, maybe like Haze or something, but instead it's Calm Mind. And now he's in the position where Enosh is a -1 Tapu Lele. Marcus can Parting Shot out again if he wants. He can stay in if he wants. There's so much going on, and Tapu Lele really seems pretty threatening here.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see a Parting Shot here for the sole reason that if he can get that Coco back in, he immediately has the HP Fire Pressure, but we'll see the Taunt to prevent the Trick Room setup. But it will be interesting to see whether he tries to get that Coco back in. Yeah, here's the Dazzling Gleam.
Can it live? No, it doesn't.
Big kill there. But that could give Marcus the opportunity to get that Coco back in and really prevent that Kartana from being a threat against that Lele. Against that Finny, because Finny's at +2 SPDEF, +2 special attack. This thing is going to be wreaking some serious havoc, especially if it starts firing off some muddy waters. We'll see an Ice Beam come off here into the Finny, going for that 10% freeze. Will it do it? He probably double targeted into the Persian there, if I had to guess, just to try to get the kill there. Looks like he was able to do that without a problem. But this Finny is looking incredibly scary, especially since that P2 is taunted. It's locked into Ice Beam or T-Bolt. That Lele is not looking like it's going to be able to do too much to the Finny, and this Coco could hit the field here, which again does prevent the effectiveness of that Kartana. But we have a lot of reason to believe that his Kartana, Enosh's Kartana, is, of course, potentially Focus Sashed, which could play into a big effect here, as obviously that HP Fire would not be able to knock it out.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing analysis, Dan. And this is a really, really interesting situation because, most likely Marcus wants to Gigavolt Havoc into this Porygon 2 because it's one of his Z Normalium Z Nature Power turn into Gigavolt Havoc, take out this Porygon 2 because it's like, he's gonna have trouble eliminating it later in the game, but Enosh did have the option of bringing in Fini there. So let's see. Lele actually goes for Protect here. What does Marcus do? Bolt switches.
I gotta say, if Marcus drops another Calm Mind here, my goodness, I don't know how he's gonna stop it.
I'm just gonna throw up. If Calm Mind happens again, guys, I'm gonna throw up right now. Let's see. This is Marcus's last mod. It is Arcanine, so he does have an out against that Kartana if Enosh chose to bring it. I don't think Enosh has Garchomp in the back, just because of the fact that he had a pretty easy switch for it earlier and he didn't take it. Moonblast comes out. Who did it target?
It goes into the P2. Wow.
So he doubled into that slot, correctly predicting that Enosh did not want to. Oh my goodness, and it's Ice Beam. It's Ice Beam. Markus Stadter brings an Arcanine into an Ice Beam, doubles into the slot that didn't protect. An amazing turn. Porygon 2 is still taunted, and now neither of Enosh's Pokemon can safely protect. One of them because they're taunted and doesn't have to protect. The other one being Tapu Lele, who just protected. And let's not forget his -1 special attack with Dazzling Gleam against a +2 special defense with Fini. This is an incredible position, but the fact is that if Enosh has Kartana in the back, he could bring this whole thing around, especially if he gets rid of Marcus's Arcanine. So I'm so sorry. I got really excited, guys. Please forgive me, Dan.
Rightfully so, man. This is an epic game 3, and this is what you look for in VGC 2017. I think Enosh, the way he pulls this back is he's really got to get that Kartana on the field, and he's got to get rid of that Arcanine. But we're going to see that Coco come back in.
On the field.
And here comes that Kartana. I'm assuming the Lele is going to switch out. No, he's got Fini in the back, and that is going to put Marcus just in the driver's seat here. That Fini is not able to do anything to the opposing Fini, of course. Muddy Water comes off here, does connect. That is going to drop that Porygon 2 here with that +2 SPDEF. Porygon 2 not being able to recover. P2 goes down. Fini takes some solid chunk of damage there. And it's looking like Marcus is definitely in the driver's seat here, guys. And make sure you guys do not play Pokemon Go or text and drive. And if you want to save 50% or more on your car insurance, you can switch to Geico. So
Okay,
we'll see.
I'm so sorry.
We'll see the Lele come in here. Go ahead, Wolf.
Okay, this is still an interesting position. Even though Marcus is in kind of a commanding position, this game is not by any means over. What's interesting to me is that Enosh chose to not bring in his own Kartana there, which like this seems like if you're gonna bring it in, like it kind of seems like now is the point. He has 2 special attackers against the boosted Tapu Fini. And like neither Tapu Fini or Tapu Koko can really threaten Kartana. So maybe Enosh bringing Arcanine as his last Pokemon, which I think in this situation is not what you want. The fact is that do we know the item on that Fini, Dan? Have we seen it do anything?
I'm not quite sure whether we've been able to determine what that Fini's item is, but I got to say, Marcus having that the double calm mines there really putting him in a good position because both the opponent Pokemon are, of course, special attackers going to be targeting that special defense style of the Fini. So he is, Enosh is going to be really banking on a crit here if he wants to take that Fini down.
That's right. And okay, Tapu Fini actually protects Marcus, probably realizing that Enosh needs to get rid of that Tapu Fini. Let's see what Koko does. Volt Switch. Do you think Enosh called this? Do you think this is like a calm mind? I don't know, maybe a muddy water into the incoming Arcanine? What do you think?
I don't know, man. I think from Enosh's perspective, you got to get rid of that Fini if you want to have a chance to come back in this. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did target that Fini slot. But a good prediction here, and doubling into the Arcanine could make a huge difference and really turn this game around. But it's looking really tough for Enosh to be able to take down that Fini. There's a substitute, but it doesn't have enough. My goodness, Psychic going to target into the Arcanine. Of course, in that Psychic terrain, doing a tremendous amount of damage, but not be able to get that substitute off is huge. That Fini could have been sitting behind a nice plush doll with 25% of its health, but instead it's sitting there at about 23% of health and wishing he could have got that sub up. Yeah, that might have been a damage roll, honestly, because if Tapu Fini, like Enosh correctly predicts that turn, he correctly attacks into the Pokemon that's not Tapu Fini, into the Arcanine, the incoming Arcanine, and goes for a sub. And if that had worked out, that could have actually changed the tide of the battle, I think. But it's still not over. Enosh still has lots of options to work with. Interestingly enough, we do not see leftovers from that Tapu Fini, despite having substitutes. So I don't know what Enosh is running on the Tapu Fini. You don't see substitute Tapu Fini very often, but I don't know. There's still a lot. It is possible that it could be rocking that Super Berry and just fell a little shy of hitting that berry. And now this Tapu Fini from Marcus's side
it's fast.
Wow, we got a faster Tapu Fini here. A clutch accuracy drop could really turn things around. That will pick up the kill on Arcanine. Will this get the accuracy drop? No, he needed that accuracy drop. A calm mind from the Lele.
Everyone's calm.
Baby. Everyone is very calm. But this match is definitely not calm because this is getting pretty intense here. Round 3, Markus Stadter taking on Enosh here. Moonblast comes off. That is going to target the Fini slot, and that will pick up the kill, I'm sure, sitting at +2. And now this Lele is sitting all alone in its terrain.
I think it's all going to come. Oh, sorry.
I believe that Coco's coming in and it's going to change his terrain back. Oh, no,
it's Kartana.
He does have the Kartana sitting in the back.
That was so clever by Enosh. He saved Kartana the whole game and waited until he was able to get rid of Marcus's Arcanine. Marcus probably saw that he didn't bring in Kartana earlier and maybe assumed that Enosh didn't have it. But now he's in a position where, I don't know, Dan, this is looking really nice if you're Enosh.
Oh, yeah, totally. Having that potential sash sitting on that Kartana will guarantee that I can live at least one hit. We know that Kartana will outspeed the Fini, potentially forcing him into Protect here. So this is going to be a real big mind game. Does Marcus go for the Protect on this turn and have the Kartana target into the Coco slot? Well, we see that Lele try to dish out some damage as well. Very, very interesting turn of events. We know that Coco's running that HP Fire, so this is going to be a very tough prediction. If Enosh predicts wrong, this could be really bad.
Yeah, I actually prefer Enosh's position here, I think. But it all comes down to what item is on that Kartana. Is it a Z Crystal or is it Focus Sash? If it's Focus Sash, I think he's in a really strong position here. But imagine it's not Focus Sash. Then all of a sudden, I don't know, it might be pretty tough. He goes for Detect with Kartana. Does Marcus call it? It's no protecting from Coco, so let's see what happens.
We're going to see that hidden power from Coco does target into that. Will we see a Psychic from the Lele into the Coco slot?
Is it going to
get enough? See it come on. Oh, this is +1, not in terrain, but that does pick up the kill on the Coco. Wow, big turn of events here. The Fini goes for Muddy Water, does not do a single thing to that Kartana slot. And Kartana now in the driver's seat, being able to fire off a big Leaf Blade, which will 100% knock out this Fini here momentarily if that is the decision that he goes for. But my goodness, that was a huge play there, going for the Detect. Lele, of course, picking up the kill on the Coco, which could have been a bulkier variant of Coco, but if we see this Leaf Blade from the Kartana, that'll be it for the Fini. I don't anticipate it living this hit, coming off that insane attack stat.
That's it.
And it's not going to make it. And Osh picking up the W there with a very, very big win. Keeping that Kartana in the back, as you mentioned, just incredibly impressive, the fact that he was able to save that Kartana until the end of the game, understanding, hey, I know you got that Finny in front of me. I know you've got 2 Calm Minds up, but I know my win condition. I understand that if I keep Kartana in the back and I wait for the right moment and have you keep focusing on my own Finny and let you set up, you could Calm Mind, you can protect all you want. I've got my Kartana in the back, and I know I can win that battle. I just have to get my Lele strong enough to one-shot your Coco. And we see that plan executed to perfection. It was almost like Enosh was thinking like 5 turns ahead there, and he really executed his plan to perfection there at the end.
I think that was really, really impressive play by Enosh. There was a point in the game, I think I mentioned it, where Markus had both Feeny and Coco on the field, and Enosh had a free switch in, and he brings in Lele instead of bringing in his Kartana, and I think that play made all the difference because I feel like Markus, based on what Enosh did, assumed that Enosh must have had his own Arcanine in the back. And based on that, Markus said, okay, I need Coco to win this game. I don't really need my Arcanine. You know, I've got boosted Tapu Fini. I don't really need my Arcanine. So he lets it go down. And as soon as it goes down, Enosh brings in his Kartana, and all of a sudden, Markus is in a really tough bind because he's lost one of his main ways of dealing with that Kartana. So yeah, that was really well managed by Enosh. It looked like Markus had the advantage for a majority of the game, but Enosh just clutched it out at the end by some good information management. And we still don't know if that Kartana holds a focus sash or not. He never revealed it. So
I was going to say that as well, right? Kartana known for quite a bit of versatility in terms of the item it carries. You most often see a focus sash, a lot of assault vest variants kind of popping up lately to kind of deal with P2 and stuff like that. And we've seen some Bloom Doom variants. We know that Arcanine is carrying the Fire MZ. Is he carrying the Bloom Doom in that Kartana as well? Or is it a sash he chose not to rely on? And on that match there, just going for the detect, really kind of scouting out those plays and being able to fire off the Leaf Blade on the following turn, potentially predicting a protect from the Finny and ensuring that he can live, obviously. So I'm led to believe that he might not be Sash, but we'll have to find out in a later matchup. But Enosh does move on, and we're going to be jumping into an interview here shortly, of course, with Enosh to talk to him about how he picked up that W against Markus. Great games all around. Markus really pulled it back in game 2, really showed a lot of momentum there, but Enosh was able to just come out on top, really saving that Kartana. Proved to be incredibly useful. You just got to give it up to him for having that much foresight and understanding. Even though there's this giant threat sitting right in front of me, setting up in my face, I know I could check it if I just wait to the right moment and I get my Lele strong enough to be able to take care of that Coco, and he managed to execute that perfectly.
Absolutely. And I know I personally am looking forward to hearing what Enosh says about his play in his interview. So I think we'll be right back, guys. Please enjoy this short break while we wait for Enosh.
All right, guys, we are back here for the Pokemon VGC Invitational presented by ONOG and Geico Gaming. We are joined by Enosh here, who picked up that W there, best 2 out of 3 against Markus, Yoshi, Stadter there. Enosh, great matchup, man. You had some really interesting sets, some great stuff. What was going through your mind there in game 3?
Oh, my God. I just didn't want to go and mess it up because that was unnerving. Every single turn felt like it had so much pressure. Like I could make a mistake and he could make a mistake. And I really didn't want to be that one.
Yeah, just great play overall, man. You did a really great job stepping up there, especially those last couple of turns, preserving that Kartana in the back and letting that Finny set up on you for a good portion of that match. Can you talk a little bit about what was going through your mind when that Finny was clicking those Calm Minds? Did you just know you had the Kartana sit in the back, you were ready to rock, or kind of what was your thought process there?
The whole thing about Tapu Finny was if I go beat to the Persian Tapu Koko, the Finnies just can't do anything to Kartana because it just gets KO'd. So it was all about trying to maintain some pressure on the other slots because I didn't feel like the Finny was the biggest threat.
I think that's like really good awareness by you. Now, Enosh, you're going up. Your next match is going to be against 2015 World Champion Viera. How do you feel? Did you watch his stream game? He's got like a super unconventional team. How are you feeling going into that match?
I went to the restroom during that set.
Oh, no.
So I missed like half of it because damn, that set went fast.
Yeah, it was a quick set.
Like both had very aggressive teams and both just played very quickly.
Yeah, it was a quick set, but how are you feeling? Are you nervous? Do you feel good? That was a big win against, current world third place. Yeah.
That was insane. I feel like the type of team, Lele, Drifblim, Pheromosa, I feel like I've played against that a lot recently for some reason. A bunch of my friends started using it. I was like, oh, damn. But to be fair, I've not had the best win rate against it, so you never know.
Yeah, and Enosh, one of the things I wanted to ask you actually is talk about your P2 a little bit, right? So you're rocking this Porygon 2, if I'm not mistaken, and it is carrying the Trick Room option, but your team doesn't really seem to kind of fit that mold. So can you give us a little bit of an idea as why you're running that Trick Room? Is it to reset other Trick Rooms, knowing that archetype is super common, especially after we saw, that Trick Room team, of course, win 2 regionals now? Is that really your plan there, or do you have some other tricks up your sleeve, perhaps, with that guard shop?
Long story short, Porygon 2 is a really strong Pokemon. That mostly sums it up. It's a really strong Pokemon, and getting to use it is the main reason it's on there. Having Trick Room on it just makes Porygon 2 stronger, and the rest of the team falls into this speed where sometimes I get to use it. I don't rely on it. It helps against other Trick Room. It's a fun move overall. I love having these like weird speed tiers.
Yeah, I gotta ask.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, very interesting play there by Markus, bringing a pretty unconventional team, rocking the parting shot Persian, which obviously had crazy amounts of tech with the fake out you were dealing with Taunt. Obviously, that Volt Switch with the Coco, very unconventional Coco as well. We saw HP Fire. We saw the Nature's Madness.
Nature-powered Nomalium Z.
What was going through your head dealing with all those momentum switchers? You had a lot of difficult things to play around that the common VGC player usually doesn't bring to a match. Obviously, Markus bringing a very unconventional team with all that pivoting. How did you handle that going into game 2 and 3 after you got that knowledge?
So the most interesting thing was like, I was wondering, what's the Z move? For like most of the game, I figured it was probably Arcanine, probably Coco, not Coco. And then I saw the Gigavolt Havoc come out from the Coco, and I was like, my mind is blown. Because I saw that was from Nature Power 2, when I saw the Z dance. Like, I was looking at it, I was like, why isn't the electric Z dance? Why is it the Normalium one? I was staring at it, like looking confused, and then it all clicked. And suddenly Nature Power came out into Gigavolt Havoc. The nice thing about that is it told me it was Hidden Power Fire. Like,
really?
Yeah. Rajan and Alvin had used Volt Switch, Nature Power, Hidden Power Fire with Life Orb at the Athens Regional, and it kind of became an adaptation of the more standard set. So it became more obvious. I did not expect the Coco to be that type of set, though, after it was slower than the Persian.
Yeah, that's something
there were a lot of very interesting speed tiers that Markus also was messing around with, and that was really well done.
Yeah, Wolf, I know you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Enosh, really quickly, just give me like a percentage answer. You've got a lot of really cool tricks in your team. What percentage of your tricks do you think you've shown so far, just in that set?
Okay. I only showed 2. I feel like I only showed 2 tricks.
Okay, how many?
Tricks. And I have like
400.
Only showed like maybe 1/4 to 1/3.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So
yeah,
guys, keep your eye on Enosh.
Yeah, that was it. Only 1/4 to 1/3 of the tricks.
Yeah. So Enosh, best of luck going forward. The schedule's changing slightly. Guys, it's currently 5:30 a.m. in Germany, so we're gonna play the losers match. Alex Ogloza versus Markus Stadter, 2 behemoths of the game, both in the losers bracket. One of them being knocked out. So we're gonna wrap this up so we can get into that game and show you guys next. Dan, any final words? Enosh, any final words?
That aDrive, congratulations. That was phenomenal play.
Agreed.
Like it was wonderful to watch that whole set. Wolf, your set against Sejun was probably the best set of Pokemon I've seen in years.
Hey, don't discredit yourself, man. That matchup you just had against Markus was quite eventful itself, and I'm excited to see you play out the rest of this tournament. Some great sets. As you said, we've only seen a percentage of what you're rocking with, but as Wolf did say, we're going to head to a quick break. After the break, we're going to be seeing Markus versus Alex. Of course, do want to mention, as Wolf pointed out, we are dealing with a number of different time zones here, players competing from Japan, from Germany, and things like that. So all the props in the world to everyone who is just totally throwing their sleep schedules out of the window to make this tournament happen, guys. So let's see some hype in the chat. Of course, be sure to check out all the players on social media. They've got their Twitters, many of us creating YouTube and Twitch content. And of course, thank you to OneNationOfGamers and Geico Gaming. We'll see you guys here in just a few minutes.